Okay, right, people. I'm hoping you guys didn't struggle too much with this. As I said, I tried saving time because we got to get to the next chapter. So two, so julle sien ek het die eerste gedeelte van daai oefening geskip, né? I left out number 1 and 2, the easier stuff. And skip to 3, 5 and 6 or 3, 4 and 6, né? Maar nou hoop ek nou nie dit het julle nou te veel de mekaar gemaak hè. Op daai noot, né? I'm going to do as much as possible now, laat ek so lank skip dat julle kan merk. I'm going to try and, we're obviously going to mark and then we'll practice in some more whatever you guys struggled with, né? Maar aan die einde van hierdie periode is ons nog gou eers klaar met sirkelmeetkunde. We can come back to it just before we write again and then we'll practice it some more, né? But I have to move on because the other classes already started with the next chapter last week, né? So ek wil nie te ver met ons agterraak nie. Then you have to bring your book 1 tomorrow because we start with functions. Okay. En dan ook, I think I told you guys that every Wednesday, yes, 7:15 until 8:15. If your lift only comes to school at 20 past whatever, nee, want ek weet, julle het voor dit vir my gesê, vervoer is bietjie van 'n probleem. Then you will just miss out on what we did and you would have to catch up with a video on that. Nee? Maar ek moet daai tyd, dis altyd wat ons kry. Okay, so I've got to use that. I'm carrying on. So if you're late that morning, then you've got to catch it up. Is that a deal? Okay, en dan ook, onthou asseblief môre jou koppie. Ek gaan nie môreoggend koppies gaan haal nie. So if you forget your cup, it means you can't drink. Okay. Right. Coffee, tea, not chocolate. 3.3, sê hulle vir my. Bepaal of die gegewe lyn in elk geval 'n raaklyn of 'n snylyn aan daai sirkel is of nie een van die twee nie. Now, the example that we worked out, I'll explain. Ek gaan nou verduidelik, né? The example that we worked out last week in class. We got to, let's say, that point, né? And then we worked out x and we had 2 values for x, né? En toe sê dit vir ons, omdat daar 2 x-waardes is, sny hy 2 keer deur daai sirkel. Onthou julle dit? Okay, now, I also then said, if there was only 1 x value, it meant that it only touched the circle once, so then it would be a tangent. Nee, is julle reg? But in this case, over here, when you got up until there, you guys did x is equal to, and then you use that quadratic formula. Nee, en dan gee jou sakrekenaar elke keer vir jou math error. Why? Because of delta. Nee, the part that's inside that square root. Onthou julle? Nou, as dit mos binne in daai vierkantswortel negatief is, then it's impossible to get an x value. Nee. Okay, now what is, so does everyone understand what I mean by this part? You could, if you probably didn't write that, you just wrote x is equal to, and then you substitute it into the quadratic equation, en dan gaan jy sê, no solution for x. Het julle dit gehad? You can't say math error, né? Skryf my geen oplossing vir x. Okay, no solution for x. Either that, or this part that I highlighted here. Okay, then, because there's no solution for x. Nou moet ons net gou hierdie geel, daai afleiding gaan maak. Omdat daar geen x-waarde is nie, because there's no x value, it means that this line and that circle, there's no x value, so it's not touching at all. Nee, daai twee is ver weg van mekaar af. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay, right, so, over here I said, roots are imaginary, because delta was negative, the part inside the square root. Nee, daai gedeeltjie wat ons binne my vierkantswortel was negatief of kleiner as 0, wat beteken my wortels is imaginair. There's no solution for x, it's impossible. Nee? And therefore, the line doesn't cut the circle. So, it's not a tangent, want as dit 'n raaklyn is, gaan hy 1 x waarde hê. It's not a secant, Want as dit 'n snylyn is, dan gaan hy mos 2 waardes vir x hê. Okay. You guys good? Right, so maybe if you want, make a little note there. One x value, then it's a tangent. 2 x values, then it's a secant, a snylyn. And no x value, it doesn't touch. Nee, net dat jy kan onthou. Alright. So any questions at 3.3? Is julle reg? Okay. Dan gaan ons gou gaan na nommer 4 toe. You guys only did 4.1. Can I skip? Hands up, who's still copying here? Okay. Now, forget about the red. First look at the black. Now the question says we've got to determine whether these two circles, whether they touch or cut through each other or nowhere near each other. Nee, selfde storie hierso, nee. So as hulle mekaar net raak, kyk gou ek gaan vir jou terugskep. Over here we said if they just touch like the ones over here, then if I add the two radiuses, it would be the same as the distance from midpoint to midpoint. Nee, as hulle glad nie vir mekaar raak nie, like we have over there, then if I add the two radiuses, that's going to be smaller than when I get the distance from the two midpoints. And over here, when it cuts, it means if I add radiuses, it's longer than the distance from, andersom, as ek die twee radiusse, ja, dan is hy langer as vanaf middelpunt tot by middelpunt. You guys remember this? Okay, so, the black is how we did it in class. So what we do is, the radius of this first one, because that was 81, I got radiuses 9. 9. Okay, then, because that is 1, I got radiuses 1. You guys good with that? Okay, so now I go add the two radiuses, and that gave me 10. Right, so that's my radiuses. Nou gaan kyk ek gou, step 2, get the distance from midpoint to midpoint. Okay, nou kyk gou, die middelpunte van die cirkels. Equation 1, the midpoint would be 0, 0. En by vergelyking 2, gaan dit mos wees 0 en minus 10. Nee, nou, usually we have to use distance formula, maar in hierdie geval was dit lekker maklik, nee. Vanaf die oorsprong tot nog steeds op daai as, waar is my woorde? X-as, so ek kon lekker maklik gekyk het, nee, y-as. So, if I look at that, the distance from midpoint to midpoint would be 10. You guys good? Nee? Okay, en dit beteken, have a look, the two radiuses added is the same as the distance between the two midpoints. And what does that mean? They basically touch. Nee, so this, die circles raak. Right, so the black is what we did in class, and that would get you exactly the same amount of marks as the red. Okay. Nou by die rooi gee ek net gou vir jou 'n ander alternatief, nee, I'm just giving you a different alternative. If we want to know whether these two circles touch or overlap or not close to each other at all, we can use the same principle as we did in the previous question. Nee? Ek kan hulle gaan gelykstel aan mekaar, nee? Of die een in die ander een gaan instel om te kan sien how many x values would there be. If there's one x value, it means they touch each other once. If there's two x values, then it means they overlap. Nee, want dan gaan hulle mos twee keer 2 x waardes hê, waar hulle gelyk is aan mekaar. Nee, does that make sense, you guys?
I'm just wondering why there at the top is x squared plus y squared equals 81, and then there is 82.
O, ek kom nog, because I'm subtracting. Ja, maar ek gaan nou daar kom. Right? So as daar 2 x-waardes is, beteken dit hulle sny, en as dit geen x-waardes is, nee, then these two circles are far away from each other. Then they don't touch or cut through each other. Okay, right, so kom ons gaan kyk gou-gou. Over here, at the top, I numbered them equation 1 and 2. So I'm saying, let's take equation 1 minus equation 2. Nee? I'm solving simultaneously, and the method that I'm using is, in this case, elimination. Nee? Okay, so if I take x squared minus x squared, I'm going to get nothing. Then I take y squared minus that bracket squared, en dis wat ek hier vir jou gaan uitskryf het. Nee, you guys good with that? Okay, en dan moet ek gaan sê 80 minus 81, minus 1, en dis hoe ek kry 80. You're now fine with where I got that. Okay, then from there, I multiplied out this bracket, the y plus 10. Nee, en dis hoe ek kry a kwadraat, eintlik plus 20y plus 100, but once I multiply in that negative, it becomes minus y squared minus 20y minus 100. Wees nie lekker by tot daar nie. Okay, right, so if I take everything to the left, normal numbers to the right, I end up with minus 20y is 180, wat beteken a is minus 9. Nou sien ek het net een waarde? Nee, there's only one answer for y. I substitute that into either equation 1 or 2 to get that x value, which is 0. En omdat daar net een punt is, beteken daai sirkel sny nie, because if they cut, they'd have 2, have a look, 1, 2, but they don't cut, they just touch. So therefore, this point here where they touch, it would be where x is 0 and y is minus 9. Mark it in, Owens? You guys good? Good. Can I skip? Wie skryf nog? Stefan op? Okay, done. Number 6. Please excuse my picture, dis baie lelik. Right, so first things first, at 6.1, they want the coordinates of A, the x-intercept of the circle, M. Okay, so because it's x-intercept, wanneer hulle praat van x-afsnit, wat weet ons, daar waar dit weer die x as sny, gaan A altyd wees? 0, nee. Okay, so that is my first step. I make y equal to 0, and then it means that my equation will be much easier. So if I simplify that, I get up until here. Nou moet jy mooi onthou. How do I get rid of that square? I've got to do square root on both sides. Nee, and square root of 16 will have to be plus or minus 4. Nee. Goed, so ek gaan hom nog gaan uitskryf. So I take x minus 2 and make it equal to positive 4, or x minus 2 equal to negative 4. So then if I simplify that, it means that x will be 6, or x will be minus 2. Why is that true? Because it cuts through the x-axis twice, over here and over there. Nee, is julle reg? Okay, but now they just want the coordinates of A. And A lê aan die negatiewe kant. So that's why A would be the minus 2 and Y would obviously be 0. Is julle by met hom? Any questions at 6.1? Is julle reg? Okay, dan 6.2. Now they want to get the coordinates of B, the y-intercept of circle M. Now again, when we work with y-intercept, it means that x will have to be 0. Nee, so dan gaan stel ek net daai x is 0 in by my vergelyking. So just remember that when we get square root of 16, your answer will have to be plus or minus 4. Again, I have two options. So if I say x plus 2 is equal to positive 4, it will give me a final answer of y is 2. As ek gaan sê x plus 2 is gelyk aan minus 4, dan gaan my antwoord wees y is gelyk aan minus 6. Okay, nou onthou, hy sny die y as twee plekkies, daar en hier. Nee, obviously gaan daai die wees waar hy 2 is, so hierdie moet wees waar hy minus 6 is. Nee, is julle reg? Okay, so therefore the coordinates of B will be where x is still 0 and y is minus 6. Nou kom ons skryf hom sommer gou nou hierso in. So B is 0 minus 6. Okay, goed. Wat is die koördinate by M? M is midpoint of the circle. Nee, so I can get that right at the top here. The x value will be 2 and the y value will be minus 2. Do you guys agree? Nee? Ek lees dit mos net van my vergelyking af. Enige vrae daar? Okay, nou vra hulle by 6.3. Die vergelyking van die raaklyn AC en BC. Now, what do we know about tangent and radius? It cuts at a 90 degrees angle. And AM is a radius. Nee? Met ander woorde, daai hoekie gaan mos moet wees 90 grade. Nee, hoekom sê ek dit? Because the gradient of AM times the gradient of that tangent will give me minus 1. Stem julle saam? Okay, ek verduidelik net gou voordat ek nou aanskiet. Same story here. MB is a radius, so hierdie hoekie daar gaan ook mos wees 90 grade, nee? You guys good? Okay, kan ek maar skip? Goed, nou vra hulle vir my by 6.3. At 6.3, they asked me to get the gradient, the equations of those two. So jy gaan vir my sê, radius, the gradient of the radius. And that's why I made you guys write down the midpoint of the circle. Nee? Because how am I going to get the gradient? Difference of y over difference in x. Nee. So as ek dit gaan gebruik, gaan ek hê 0 plus 2 op minus 2 minus 2. In other words, it gives me 2 over minus 4. So the gradient of that first radius is minus a half. Nee. Okay. So therefore, the gradient of the tangent will be positive 2. Do you guys agree? Similar song? Okay. Now, AC will then be y minus 0 over x plus 2 equal to 2. Sien julle almal wat ek daar doen? It's like I'm working out the gradient again, but I just use the tangent's coordinates. So julle reg daar? Okay, so if I multiply that out, it means that y will be 2x plus 4. Okay, now let's look at BC. Kom ons skryf miskien net hier so radius. Wat was daai radius se naam? AM. Radius AM. Okay, right. So let's work with the next one. So now it's going to be the radius of MB. Gradient of radius MB. Minus 2 plus 6, difference in y over difference in x. And that gives me 4 over 2. In other words, 2. Okay, so therefore, the gradient of the tangent will then be minus a half. Nee, julle reg? Okay, so let's go work out gradient again, but using the tangent's coordinates. So I'm going to say y plus 6 over, and because there's a 0, I can just say x. So minus a half, en dan gaan maal ons dit uit. Y will be minus a half x minus 6. You guys good with that? Any questions? Okay, kan ek aangaan? Almal reg? Okay, it's 6.4. Now sê hulle, they want the coordinates of C. And that's basically where AC and BC cuts. Nee? Now they just made me get the equations of AC and BC. Kyk gou hier. Ons het daai en ons het hierdie. Nee. Now they want this point where these two cut. So hoe gaan ek dit gaan kry? I make these two equations equal to each other, want dis waar hulle gaan sny, nee. Okay. Oops, nee, daai nou nie. So 6.4. I'm going to say that 2x plus 4, maak dit gelyk aan die minus a half x minus 6. I want to get rid of that fraction, so I multiply everything with 2. Okay, now take all the x's to the left, normal numbers to the right, which means that x will be minus 4. Okay, so now I know the x part of my coordinate would be minus 4. We've got to get the y. So let's just substitute in. Minus 4 plus 4. So it means y will be. So therefore, the coordinates of C is where x is minus 4 and y is also minus 4. Any questions? Reg? Okay, nou die laaste enetjie is 6.5. By 6.5 vra hulle vir my, what type of quadrilateral would ACBM be? With reasons. Okay, so let's start with what we've already got. Nee, kyk gou hierso. Sien jy daar het ek 'n 90 grade en 'n 90 grade? Nee, okay, so let's start with that. So I'm going to say CAM is 90. Raaklyn radius. And then I also know that MBC tangent radius. Then, what else did they make me work out earlier on? Kan ek gou terugskiet? Kyk gou hierso vir my. Look at the gradient of this tangent and the gradient of that tangent. Hulle, nee, nie parallel nie. Hulle gaan ook met 'n 90 grade hoekie sny. Do you guys see that? Nee? Okay. Okay, so I can say AMB gaan wees 90 van die gradiënt van AB maal die gradiënt van MB, sorry, geef my minus 1, and the same thing at ACB. gradient of AC times the gradient of BC gives me minus 1. You guys good? Okay, and done. What else do we know? AM and MB are equal to each other. Why? Want hulle is mos radiusse. Nee. Okay, so what I've got so far, when I do it like that, this is 90, that's 90, this is 90, that's 90, and then I get this is equal to that. So what type of quadrilateral? What's a square? Nee. Wat sê jy? Vleer? Hoekom nie 'n vleer nie, nee? Want as daai 90 is en hierdie is 90, beteken dit eintlik hulle is ewe ver uit mekaar uit en hierdie is ewe ver. So my afleiding gaan wees daai is gelyk en dis gelyk. So omdat al 4 sytjies gelyk is en ek het 4 90 grade hoekies, dan is dit mos nou 'n vierkant. Okay. So therefore AM kan jy daaronder sien, ja. BC square. Julle reg? Nee, want 'n parallelogram het nie 90 grade hoekies nie. Okay. Right, let me hear. Any questions? Is julle reg? You guys will see that I skipped number 1 and 2. Nee? At number 1, it asked you to give the equation of the tangent en die loodlyn aan elkeen van die sirkels gegee word die punt op daai sirkel. Do you guys want to practice a few from 1 and from 2 or maybe just 2 of wil julle moet julle nog moeilike voorbeelde nog deurwerk? I put a few on paper here as well so you can have a look at those, nee? Maar dis baie soos wat ons nou gedoen het. Okay, these are all just, they give you the equation of the line and then there's a tangent and you've got to get midpoints and equation of the tangent en daai tipe goedjies. Okay, moet ek moeiliker is doen of wil julle by nommer 1 en 2 gaan oefen? Sê weer? Een van elk. Okay, right. Kom ons kyk gou. Maar ons gaan doen en okay. So probeer julle gou vir my 1.2. Ek gaan sommer net sê ekstra. Ek wil hê julle moet doen en dan merk ons hom vinnig. Gaan doen julle en dan merk ons hom vinnig. Kyk gou at 1.2. Kyk, bepaal die vergelyking van die raaklyn en die loodlyn aan elke sirkel by die gegewe punt. Okay, so that's my circle, nee? And then that's the point where they touch. Okay, what's your first step? Kyk hoe lyk die vergelyking van my sirkel. Is that how we want it? So first get it in terms of what it should be. Like it looks like a circle's equation. Want van dit af gaan ek wat nou weer kry? Die middelpunt. Okay, kom doen. Ek gaan nie baie tyd gee nie, nee. Don't worry about the textbook. It's basically, that's the equation, and this is the point where it touches, right? Where that line touches. I want the equation of that tangent. Okay. You guys done? Julle klaar? Good. Okay, so first things first, because there was a 3 in front of the y squared, I divided everything by 3 to get rid of that. So then I got y squared is equal to 5 minus x squared. Okay, and then basically just take the minus x squared to the other side. Nee. Okay, dan gaan ek hê jou gradient van die radius, you guys can maybe just quickly copy, would then be a half, which means that the gradient of my tangent would be minus 2. Sorry, midpoint here will be 0, 0. Okay, so dan gaan ek net sê a minus 1 over x minus 2 gaan mos my gee die gradient van daai minus 2. So then y minus 2 is equal to minus 2x plus 4. So y is equal to minus 2x plus 5. Het hom gekry. Who got that far? Mooi. Right. Sorry?
I did 3 to 2, but I just got the book.
Oh, okay. Right, daar's nog so enetjie wat ek eintlik met julle wou gedoen het, maar as kan miskien môreoggend sal ek hom net vir julle, ek sal hom op 'n papiertjie afrol, dan kan jy hom huis toe van en hoef jy nie af te skryf nie, okay? So, tomorrow, book 1, 7:15, né?